Welcome. It's nice to have you here. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
You're listening to the Jam Session Podcast.
I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume.
With Cowboys insider...
What's your name?
Jean-Jacques Taylor.
That's my name.
Radio personality and craft beer expert, Matt McLaren.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing.
And now, the Jam Session Podcast.
It is indeed Jam Session. Subscribe, rate, and review, and hang out with us for a while. Right here on Jam Session. The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the radio, TV, and now podcast superstar, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor.
What up, dog?
I would be the non-sexy one, Matt McLaren, and you have made it to Jam Session, the podcast version 15, asking simply that you prepare to be dazzled,
if not entertained.
And as always, we'd like to thank a couple of our sponsors. It's been very cool to see the support. And a couple of our newest sponsors. First off, Freeway Tire Shop. Very easy to get to in Dallas, right off of 35. And I'll tell you, JR and the guys at Freeway Tire Shop will take care of you. Service whatever you need with your car. State inspections, oil changes, alignments, general mechanic work. And of course, it's in the name of the shop. Tires. Freeway Tire Shop. They offer competitive pricing and elite customer service. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you let them know you're a Jam Session listener, they're going to take care of you guys. They will handle the Jam Session audience. So check out what they do at freewaytireshop.com. You can go there, schedule an appointment, request a quote at freewaytireshop.com. Also, we would like to welcome in Blue Star Motor Group. Now, Jacques, I know you've got like 900 cars, so maybe you need to give these guys a call. But
yes, sir.
Blue Star Motor Group is a local husband and wife team. They have over 50 years of combined experience in the car business, and they specialize in superior quality, Carfax certified pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models. So whatever you're looking for, they have it for you. Super simple and aggressive pricing. So give Deb a call. If you need to sell your car, if you're trying to figure out the value of your car retail versus the wholesale, give Deb a call with Blue Star Motor Group. Now, they do have an Instagram. I've been checking it out, and you can see customer reviews, but I would also encourage you to check out their website at bluestarmotorgroup.com. They've got their inventory there, and they'll get you all taken care of. And again, your numbers are listed. You can contact them through their websites, the easier way than just listing off a bunch of phone numbers. But contact Deb at Blue Star Motor Group, bluestarmotorgroup.com. Big fans of Jam Session and really appreciate their support as well. But Jacques, as we get started here on this version, as we always do, a couple of days after a Cowboys game, whether it's a win or loss, we take a look at the 4 plays that changed the game that perhaps you forgot about. Maybe at the time they seemed insignificant. But then when you go back and look, you go, man, if they had done this instead of that, who knows what could have happened? Well, instead they got their ass kicked. So we will start you off. Our first play today, we're going to go to the first quarter. 6 minutes and 37 seconds remaining in the first quarter. Dallas is actually up at this point 3-0. And believe it or not, they've got a chance to maybe get a double-digit lead. It's 1st and 4 from the Philly 4. Here's what happens.
Good start for Elliott, already averaging 6 yards a carry. And now he gets taken down in the backfield. Javon Hargrave reached that perfectly. It'll be 2nd down and goal after a loss of 3.
Yeah, here's one of the problems the Cowboys have been having, though, are on some of these reach blocks over there. And it happened to them again, just split it right down the gap. And so neither of these teams really have been very successful stopping the run, but some big plays like that certainly going to help.
Yeah, and you kind of hear it there. Instead of it being, who knows, maybe 2nd and 4 if you're stopped for no game. Instead, it's 2nd and 7, and Ben DiNucci actually ends up getting sacked on that very next play.
I was going back looking at the play-by-play and looking at some other stuff that I do after the game. And the reason why I thought we should do this play is I completely, totally forgot in the course of the game that they had 1st and goal at the 4-yard line.
Yeah.
Meaning you expect them to score.
Right?
You expect them to score a touchdown. 1st and goal at the 4. And the other thing you got to remember is Zeke is a guy who rarely gets tackled for a loss. Why? Because he's always moving forward. So the combination of him getting dropped for a 3-yard loss and making it 2nd and 7 from the 7, you just forgot, man, that was such. You remember the fumble, but if he does his usual and you gain a yard or 2 yards,
right?
All right, then it's 2nd and goal from the 2. What are you going to do? You're probably either going to hand it off to Zeke or you're going to play action and try to hit the tight end. But you have options and your odds of scoring increase. But 2nd and goal from the 7, well, that's a different proposition. That's why you're in the shotgun. That's why you throw it. And that's why your drive gets wrecked.
So we go from that first play, and we'll move forward here into the second quarter, pretty much towards the beginning of the second quarter. It is 12:34 remaining in the second quarter in the first half. Philadelphia, by this point, has scored a touchdown. They're up 7-3, and it's a 1st and 10 for Philadelphia at their own 49-yard line.
Wentz, a couple of pump fakes, and then the pass is incomplete. Nobody gets open. Again, they're going Diggs' way, so they're not scared of the rookie, even though Mike McCarthy, when I asked him about the best players on the team, he was one of the 4 he named.
Yeah, they're not scared because Diggs has given up some really big, long touchdowns this year. And I think a lot of it is rookies that play cornerback, there's just so much to learn. They're just, these pro wide receivers are just so good. But you can see spurts of him being brilliant. I mean, you really can. And then occasionally he's been had this year.
See, it's interesting, and I let that one go a little long on that because I thought it was fascinating. They did not describe the play and what happened at all. And that's one of the things about Al and Chris Collinsworth that from time to time has begun to drive me a little crazy is they get caught up in these conversations about what they heard during the week or something. And they do that more often than they used to, it feels like. But what happened on that play was Trayvon Diggs actually made a fantastic break on the ball and saw what was happening and came down and was probably a step late of picking that for 6.
No, I mean, what happened was, and it's a really nice play because he's got safety help on the play. And because he knows he has safety help on the play, he plays off even more than usual. Mm-hmm. Okay, now don't laugh at me when I tell you this, Matt. Okay? I used to do something similar playing soccer, okay? Which means sometimes when they line up for a PK, I would take a couple extra small steps to one side, hoping that the shooter would go, oh, he's not in the middle of the field like he should be. And you shoot,
right.
You shoot for the corner, but because I assume you see that, I can start my move earlier. And once or twice it helped me make a PK save. Yeah, I was that dude. But
of course,
when we're talking about him, he gives a little extra cushion, hoping that Carson Wentz says, oh, I got a comeback route or an out route. Oh, I got plenty of space over there. He's playing off more than he should be.
Yeah.
And as soon as he does that, you go, gotcha. The only thing he didn't do was he didn't drive and start his drive to the ball. It was like a half a tick late or a tick late, a 100th of a second late. And he got there instead of ahead of the ball, he got there at the same time. Because if he gets there ahead of the ball, he's got it and he's headed the other way.
Yeah, and you didn't get any of that from the television broadcast, and it's unfortunate, but if you go back and you watch the coach's film on the All-22, you really get a sense for what Trayvon Diggs was doing, and that would have fallen in the category of a good play, Chris Collinsworth, of something that he made happen. I also thought it was a weird comment, and I remember thinking this, and I think it might have been on Homer Audio, when he talks about, oh, they're not scared of the rookie. I remember saying out loud, why would you be? He's a rookie.
They're right when they say he's giving up a bunch of big plays.
He has.
He's giving up completions. I had it right here of like 25, 31, 32, 52, 60, and 62 this year. That's a lot, bro. But if you're going to make some plays, you can make people forget about that.
You can, and that is what we saw on Sunday night, Trayvon Diggs doing that. So we move on, and again, these are the 4 plays. Perhaps you forgot about some of these that changed the outcome of the Cowboys' loss to Philadelphia. So we're going to fast forward and get into the third quarter here. There's 7 minutes and 40 seconds left. Dallas is up 9-7 at this point. They've actually got the lead. It's 2nd and 8. Maybe you can put something together here from the Philadelphia 26 and make something happen. Let's find out.
Know where your superstars reside.
Run to daylight. Here we go again. A little trickery one more time. And this time it fails as Wilson gets taken down at the 37-yard line.
Yeah. Army crawl.
Fletcher Cox, he knew what was coming, and he turns it into a loss of 10 yards.
Fletcher Cox, not fooled at all. Great players have great vision. He knew when he wasn't blocked, something was up, right? He saw it right away, and basically now one too many tricks, and they're on the border of field goal position, although who knows with Zerline tonight.
Yeah, and ideally, I mean, that's exactly what happened. You went from 2nd and 8 from the Philadelphia 26 to 3rd and 10 from the Philadelphia 36 because Fletcher Cox was like, okay, guys, I get it. As soon as you snap the ball, you're not getting it again. As I think, as they pointed out, like the third time of the evening, they were just trying to get Cedric Wilson to do something.
Well, yeah, it was to me, it was easily, obviously, the worst play call of the year. And, I don't really get caught up in, I don't get caught up in play calls in general because, if it works, it was a good play call. And if it doesn't, it wasn't. But this, to me, was a bad one because you have just run the ball 8 straight times and they couldn't stop you at all. And so it's a situation of with them not able to stop you. Why? You don't have to get fancy right now. This is not a time you got to do anything but hand that thing off again until they stop it. Because for me, if I'm the coach of the Cowboys or the play caller, you haven't been any good all year. You are finally moving people off the ball. And once you do that, man, I would have considered that 4-down territory, and I would have run the ball 3 more times, and they would have just had to stop me.
That's what I would have done. It would have made sense because, as you mentioned, they had done that right up the middle of the field without any resistance. And then all of a sudden, it's almost as if they were like, oh, wait a second. I mean, these are fun plays, but they're boring. Let's do something neat.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he was determined to do it because whatever reason, he saw something in film that week, and he was like, I know they're susceptible to this. But again, when your announcers are making jokes about some more trickery, you aren't fooling anybody, bro.
I guess. So we move on from that play to our 4th and final play. And that, of course, comes in the 4th quarter, pretty early on in the 4th quarter. There's actually 12 minutes and 52 seconds left in the game. Dallas has a 4th down here. They are trailing 15-9. It is 4th and 2 from the Philadelphia 35.
Told the offense stay out there, and they do. Can they convert on 4th down? DiNucci pressured, chased, sidearms it, and looks like it was deflected as well, and incomplete. Hargrave got a piece of it. Eagles get the ball back.
So you see that one there, and they had obviously they were going to a commercial break on the broadcast, but right before they go, Michaels lets you know there at the end that Hargrave gets a finger on it. It was a really weird play, and it's one of those, quite honestly, that it might have helped because if Hargrave doesn't get a finger on that, I'm pretty sure the Eagles intercept it.
See, that's why I don't get into play calls in general, because I don't know if when DiNucci's your quarterback at that point of the game, there just ain't a whole lot of good plays you can call, or plays that you have comfort that they're going to work. So I think a lot of times you get into they think we're going to do this, so let's do that because they think this and we've done this, so let's do that. And I mean, man, I don't even have a good play call, so I can't even criticize it. Other than that read option was working pretty good and he could run all right because he had a little mobility. But hell, they'd run that 2 or 3 times, so they might have sniffed that out too.
And that, my friend, is the 4 plays that changed the outcome of the Cowboys game that perhaps you did not remember. As we continue here on Jam Session, Jean-Jacques Taylor, Matt McLaren. Don't forget, you can always find us on Twitter. I would highly recommend that. We both tweet, pretty active on there to catch up with us at McMattRadio, at JJT_journalist. And of course, on our Instagram, if you're listening right now and you haven't been on our Instagram, make sure that you go and subscribe to that. It's very easy. Just find us on Instagram, Jam Session Cast. We'll take you straight there. But as we do at least once a week, sometimes twice a week or more, it is time to take a trip around the block. Local guys talking about local things. And I got to tell you, it is very local for all of us. Now, we are recording this on November 3rd. Many of you will be listening to this on the day after the election or perhaps catching up at some point after the election. But as Jacques and I sit here right now, we don't know what the outcome will be. And election day is always interesting to me because, and I think it's as I got older, I pay a little bit more attention, not just to the voting process. I've always kind of thought, hey, express your voice, whoever it is that you want to vote for. We've talked about that. But I wanted to ask you this. Election night, do you watch the coverage on television?
I watched it when Hillary and Trump did their thing. I imagine I will watch some of it tonight, but let me be perfectly clear. I doubt I will be immersed in it. I will watch it. I'll kind of figure out what's going on, and then I may pop back and forth, but I'm just not going to be immersed in it. Now I'm just going to tell you about me, Matt, and you probably already know this, so I'll tell y'all. But I do this in pretty much every facet of my life, sometimes to a benefit, sometimes to a detriment. But one of the things that I've done over the last decade, and I become more and more and more about that as every year goes by, is I really protect my spirit.
Yeah.
And so here's a perfect example, man. I don't watch local news. You'd be like, well, you don't watch the news? No, because if you turn on the news, the first 6 out of 7 stories every day is something negative. Somebody got killed, somebody got shot, there's some kind of conspiracy.
Right.
This guy's doing something he shouldn't be doing in local politics or whatever. And it just pollutes your spirit if you let all of that into yourself at once on a regular basis. And so the way I do it is I don't like politics. I really don't. So I'll pop in and I'll see who's going and who's winning and who's leading and what controversies popping in. And then I'll probably pop out and then I'll check it once or twice. And then before I go to bed, I'll see what it looks like. But I can't control it and I'm not in charge of it. I voted. I did my part. And so I just refuse in today's world where we're not having conversations, we're just screaming at each other for the most part, to let it really affect me because I don't think it's good for me personally.
Yeah, which is totally understandable. And I agree with you. Like, I haven't watched the local news in forever, and a lot of it is for that reason. If I ever turn it on, it'll be like at 10:20 or whatever to catch the weather and maybe a little bit of the sports. But I don't even remember the last time, unless there was a potential tornado or severe weather, that I turned on the news locally. Now, Election Day is interesting to me because I don't really follow a lot of this. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of this stuff like on Twitter, like political things muted, because to your point, it's just gotten to where people are screaming at each other and there's no civil, hey, let's meet in the middle and like, oh, you disagree? That's interesting. Why is that? And so it's hard to have those conversations anymore. And social media is the wrong platform to even try to do that to begin with. But I will say on election night that I'll probably watch a few hours of coverage of this. And some of it is, and this is what I do. I don't just watch one channel. Like, I'll start on CNN because I like Anderson Cooper a lot, but I will actually turn on Fox News and MSNBC because I like to see the two other, that are generally one's on the left and one's on the right, to hear the completely different viewpoints
of the same topic.
Right, because I find that interesting where, you'll turn on Fox News and it'll be one angle or one thing, and then MSNBC will be completely different, and then CNN, which tends to be more in the middle, but I'll bounce around, man. I'll check out the local coverage and all that and just kind of see how it's going, because I do think it's a really interesting time. It's historic, and I always like to be able to, I don't know, I guess just sometimes you can learn some things. Some channels and networks are better at helping you to understand what's going on, I think, than others. But yeah, I will stop down a little bit and check it out. And from everything I've read, and again, depending on when you're listening to the podcast as a recorded platform, we may know by then, but there's a very good chance that we go to bed on November 3rd and have no idea if Biden or Trump is going to be the winner of this election.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. So, no, it wouldn't surprise me. And so, again, I don't want to be frustrated by it, so I just keep it at arm's length.
Yeah, like I'll tell you this. In 2016, we were living in Plano, and man, we watched into the night because I was fascinated that a dude with no political experience whatsoever, that was a reality TV star and a real estate mogul, could be the president of the United States. And I couldn't turn it off. I was like, I can't believe that this is about to happen. This is nuts, you know?
No, I do know.
Because, and you know, you can read there's been a variety of books put out about his presidency, whether you agree with them or not, that's not the point. But a lot of people will tell you, and Trump is on the record in one of these books as like, he didn't think he was going to win, so much so that on November 4th or whenever it was back in 2016, on that Wednesday after Election Day, he had his private plane. He had instructed them to be ready to go and fly him to his resort in Scotland because he didn't want to be around. Like, he was out because he didn't believe, like, he was like, I mean, I'm not going to win. And then he ended up winning. And so I think that's really interesting because, you know, and maybe a lot of people believed he was going to, but we've just never seen anything like that before, where somebody that had really zero political experience whatsoever. And that was a fascinating night in 2016. Right. Will it be tonight? I don't know. We'll find out. But we continue here on our daily trip around the block. We're about to get into one of the more fascinating stories I've ever come across. But before we do that, locally here, American Airlines, which of course has their big hub and based in Dallas there at DFW Airport. As a matter of fact, I mean, I've talked about this a gazillion times, but my house is right underneath one of the flight paths of DFW. And I would say 8 out of every 10 airplanes that flies over our house is an American Airlines plane.
Wow.
Yeah. And then what's really crazy is every once in a while, it's when it's either really busy or there's a really good crosswind and they have to open that side runway. It's only been a few times recently, but and you can tell because you're like, God, what plane is that flying overhead? And I'll run outside to look, and it's a China Airlines. Oh. And so that's a plane that just came from, I'm assuming, across the ocean. And man, those things are massive. And they're actually really cool to see because, you know, it doesn't look like it's that high. I know it's a few thousand feet or whatever. And I wave and welcome them to America. You know, I'm sure they're looking out their window and there's just me waving in my backyard. And they're probably like, oh, what a nice country.
What the hell?
But American Airlines has announced that they are cutting 100,000 flights in the month of December due to low demand for the holiday season this year because of COVID-19.
That sounds like a lot of flights, bro.
Dude, it's about 50% of their normal flight schedule in the month of December, which, of course, as we know, towards the end of the year is one of the busiest travel times every year because people trying to go wherever to see family, but that's not happening this year.
No, nobody's going because, I mean, you know, I look at it like this, man. I remember a time where I probably used to take 20, 25 flights a year. And now I haven't been on a plane since we got back from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, me neither.
And before then, I hadn't been on a plane since we went to training camp. So I've probably been on 3 flights in the last 3 or 4 flights in the last 2 years.
Crazy.
And that was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I know, you know, the world has changed. And again, it's all about adaptation because all these executive platinum people who used to fly here and there and everywhere, they're not doing it. They've all got 100-inch monitors so they can do zooms on it and all this other stuff. And they're finding out we don't have to travel and we can get almost as much business done.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm the same thing with you because the last couple of flights that I've been on, I believe I was on them with you and Alan. You know, we were supposed to go to Boston in May, and obviously that trip had to get canceled. And you look around, and it's not that I'm opposed to flying right now. And there's so many amazing deals that airlines are offering to try to get you to fly. The problem is the places that I would want to go for a quick trip or whatever, it's like when you get there, it's like, okay, well, what's going to be open?
Right.
And where am I going to be able to go? And what are the regulations here? And that type of thing. I mean, a lot of the, like for family, for us, and I've mentioned this many times, but my lady friend's family, her dad lives in Oxford, Mississippi, and her mom and stepdad live in the Little Rock area in Arkansas. Well, Little Rock, I mean, by the time you go to the airport, get on a plane, get off the plane, get picked up, you can almost drive to Little Rock. I mean, it's like 4 hours from here. Oxford is a totally different beast. And so the problem is with that is that you have to really, what you do is you fly into Memphis, and then Oxford's about an hour south of Memphis. So either somebody has to pick you up or you have to take a car all the way from Memphis down to where they live in Oxford. So it's like, okay, well, what's the travel time with this? And is it easier to fly? Is it easier to drive? Like all that type of thing comes into play.
Well, I think it's interesting because, I'm having that conversation now as I'm, doing this work for the Undefeated, and I'm going back and forth to Jackson to go to Jackson State and do various things on their athletic program and Dion becoming their head coach and all this other stuff. Is it easy to hop in my car, be on 20 in about 10 minutes and drive, 6 hours? Or is it better to hop in a plane, get there an hour early, hop in a plane, fly, rent a car, get, that whole thing? Is it worth all of that to save an hour and a half, 2 hours? I don't know, but it's but that's the conversation I'm having back and forth in terms of traveling, just because, the flying thing, I typically like it, man, but at least when I'm driving, I know whose germs I've got and who I'm exposed to. And when I'm flying, as you walk through the airport, man, you just, Yeah, I mean,
there's always, this is another thing, as I've gotten older, my cutoff for drive time before I'm just like, okay, I don't want to drive anymore, continues to drop. It used to be, I have literally driven 18 hours in one day before and it didn't bother me. I would just jump in a car and I've driven to Chicago and Denver and Pittsburgh and all over the place because I never liked to fly. Well, as I've gotten older, I'm like, you know what? It's so much easier to fly, especially if that's what you're talking about. Like Little Rock, I don't mind, going down to Austin or even Houston or whatever, something like that. It's just easier and it's not that long to drive. Oxford, for me, when we have to go out there is where my cutoff is. I'm like, okay,
How far is it?
It's almost 7 hours. And so that's about one of those things where I'm like, the whole flight process is probably going to take us 4 hours. We can save 3 hours. I'm not stuck in a car driving the whole way. I don't know.
Well, see, let me tell you, I've changed. You know what happened? You'll laugh at this because I typically don't like driving all that much. And so an 18-hour drive, I would just never do. Just never do it. But, and this is a huge but the world has changed now. And between satellite radio and audio books and podcasts, I can keep my mind active enough while I'm driving.
Right.
That I'm not bored. See, I used to hate driving because I'm dating myself, okay? But you hop in the car. We know damn well you can't pick up no radio stations between half these cities.
Right.
And so then you're hosed. You're just, you in the road out there getting hypnotized and falling asleep. But now, I can listen to an audio book. I can listen to some radio. I can listen to some music. I can listen to my iPod, my music on my own music that I like. So it's enough going on that to me about Memphis, which is about 8 hours, I think, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Which is almost the same as Jackson. That's about as far as I want to drive. Now, my family's from Nashville, so if I have to throw those extra 3 hours on there and make it a full, 12, I can, but I prefer not to do that.
Yeah, and it's actually about 8 hours for us to get to Oxford. I was just looking at it. So, if that's the case, you can take a nonstop flight that takes an hour and a half. And so really, if you fly there, you're cutting your travel time in half. And so if it's going to take me a little over 8 hours, and that's just like if you don't stop. So say you stop a couple of times. So really, you're looking at 8 hours and 45 minutes. And if I can do all the airport hassle and the flight, and I can get there in 4 hours, I'm like, okay, well, that's cutting my day in half. It just makes more sense, especially if they're going to be offering some great deals. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but we'll see.
No, I think that's the way to go.
But that's travel fun for you. But again, if you're flying American Airlines, if you haven't got your flight let, you're probably screwed because they're cutting $100,000 in December. And now we continue with one of the most fascinating conversations we're ever going to have, not just on this show, but this podcast and in the history of life.
Damn, what the hell is it?
Here on the block, because you sent this article And I read this article and I kept saying, like, there's no way this is real. Like, this is a fake article. I'm waiting for it to get to the end and be like, this article was written by The Onion. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it appeared in Men's Health magazine. It's a men's health article.
Yeah, baby.
And it is a lengthy article about penis tattoos. And
I knew you would find that in.
Dude, as people, and you and I both have tattoos. As a matter of fact, we did a whole podcast on that earlier that you can go back and listen to about our tattoos and the meanings and where they are and all that. It has never, ever crossed my mind to go to a tattoo parlor, pull down my pants and say, I want one right there, friend. But man, this article, this is insane. It's a whole article. It interviews people that have tattoos on their thing. And it interviews, apparently, this woman who was like a world-renowned and considered the best in the world penis tattooer. And yes, I am saying male appendage, manhood, schlong, wiener, dong, whatever you want to call it. That's what I am referring to, getting a tattoo on that thing.
Wow. You know, I can't say that that's something I've ever wanted to do. One, I don't want a bunch of needles hitting me right there. I mean, as a young man, maybe you think about it.
No, you wouldn't. Nobody's saying no. Look,
as a young man, it might be a conversation piece for the variety of young ladies or other young men who see it. But as you get older, I mean, it's not like it's a whole bunch of people going to be looking at mine. The lovely Rain, I'm sure, would be like, well, I've seen that tattoo once or twice. The thrill is gone.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the only way that anybody is ever considering doing this is they do a lot of drugs. I'm serious. There's no way that a normal, sober, sane person considers, hey, man, I know that maybe there could be a complication or who knows what could happen or maybe the nerves or whatever, but do you mind sticking a needle in there for an hour? Nobody's doing that. It's somebody who dropped a bunch of acid, hanging out with his friends going, hey, man, what kind of weird tattoo do you want to get? Here it is. I mean, it describes the process because I wonder that too. Like, how do you tattoo that?
Tell the people.
And so apparently, and again, this is a true article about wang tattoos. All right. And so apparently what has to happen is, and it's funny because this lady says that, and I don't know why anybody would think this, but she says that a lot of guys will call and book an appointment with her and say, hey, I want to get a tattoo on my man. And they always go, yeah, and you know, I'll probably be erect the entire time. And she always goes, all right, here's the deal. If you can stay that way through the entire tattoo, I'll give you $1,000 cash. And she says in the article that she carries the cash with her and she's done hundreds of manhood tattoos and has never had, which, I mean, how could you? Somebody stabbing a miniature knife into it. But apparently for them to draw the sketch, and for anybody who's ever gotten a tattoo, you know this, but for those that don't, when you go get a tattoo, your tattoo artist will sketch what you want on a piece of paper. Right. And then kind of like a trace, they rub it off on your arm. And so it comes off, like the tracing that they do comes through the paper onto your arm or wherever. And then they tattoo, that's kind of gives them the design and they follow along and tattoo that.
Right.
Same thing on your guy, except for it to work, you have to already have your Blue Chew moment and it's got to be ready to go so that they can sketch it on you. And then after that, if it's not up and at attention, you're good. And they just pull on it to stretch it out so that they can tattoo it. This is real.
I know. That's why I sent it to you. I mean, sometimes you can send those articles to people, but you got to send them to people who would really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciated it. I was like, man, you got to be kidding me.
I put out a Twitter poll. Would you ever consider a penis tattoo? Yes, no, are you crazy?
Yeah,
only 4%
awesome.
say yes. 29% say no. 67% say y'all are crazy. And my man John Owning, what the hell are y'all talking about after I hung up?
Dude, look, the 4.2% of people that said yes are lying. Unless
Well,
it's
they
something.
can't be lying because somebody's getting it done.
All right, because the question is, would you consider one? And see,
Right.
you can put disclaimers on it. Like, okay, for $1 million, would I consider it? Yes, I would consider it for $1 million. I would probably consider it for $50,000. I'd probably get one for $50,000. But you would have to pay me, and that's the only, like, soberly sitting here trying to act like I'm going to consider getting something tatted on my thing is not happening.
Is that? I'm just asking because I don't know. What do you call that thing when you put the buckle through it?
Oh, a Prince Albert? No.
Yeah.
No, and I knew a guy that
had
had one of those ones.
What did it look like?
I don't know. It looked like a mushroom with the nail through it, essentially. What? It did.
I mean, does he just whip it out? Hey, look at this.
Pretty much.
I mean, what are we doing?
There's a guy I knew in college, and he was in the dorm or something, I think, and it was kind of a see. And this is why when people say, "Man, you used to be really crazy," I'm always like, "No, I never was," because I never did any drugs when I was in college. I never did anything like that. I mean, to me, that dude walking up to a group of his friends, going, "Hey, look what I just went and got done." That guy is crazy. I was just eccentric and maybe a little weird, which is essentially the same. But see, and now the vote, you've got over 100 votes and 9% say yes. They're lying.
Okay.
1 out of 10 guys is not considering getting his thing tattooed.
I mean, I don't know about that, man.
What would you get on it anyway? Like E.T.? So that when you get one, his neck extends?
Maybe get a giraffe.
Whatever. I mean, what are you getting tattooed on your wiener that is so important to you that that's where it has to go?
Maybe get Mandingo tatted on there.
I guess. Gosh, like the old joke, I'm trying to think of it that's really hilarious, but I can't think of it. About penises and these guys.
I've got to put this out there. If you have a penis tattoo, we want to talk about it on the show.
All right, but now say it into the mic.
I'm sorry. I had the mic on my chin while I was typing.
God.
If you have a penis tattoo, we'd like to talk to you on our podcast.
Yes, we would. And I can tell you this, we will have to figure out a solid way to get a picture of it. I don't know how you would do that, though, where you could post it on social media. I mean, you could probably get close enough to where you couldn't tell what it was. I don't know. We may just have to look, we're verifying that this. Yeah, but that's true. If you're listening and you have a tattoo on your man, then yeah, let us know. Shoot us a tweet.
Okay.
Whatever.
This is probably the better thing. Even though you've talked about it, it'd be better if we had if we had a tattoo artist who could talk about it too, because he or she could tell you the types of people that go get those things.
Well, apparently it's women that guys would rather have a woman handling it while they're tattooing it, and that's what made. I mean, this lady's name is something Moon, as I remember. Jaded Moon is what she is referenced as in the tattoo world, and she apparently is an internationally recognized genital tattoo artist.
Genital tattoo artist.
Yes. That's just what it is, man. And it's fascinating because they ask a couple of the guys in this article, what does it feel like? How painful is it?
Yeah.
And they say that it's one of those things where it's like, no big deal. For the most part, it's okay. And then somebody who has a tattoo on the tip says that you feel it in your whole body and it takes control of your breathing temporarily, except instead of it being pleasure that is rushing through your floodgates, it's pain. Okay. The only other thing I felt similar to it is getting shot with the taser.
Then why the hell would you do it?
I mean, y'all are fucking crazy, all right? I'm just going to throw that out there. And I think that is an appropriate use of that one. Getting your dong tattooed. What is wrong with people, man? I mean, there's a lot of tattoos I would love to get in a lot of areas that I would probably put a tattoo. Not on that thing.
I guess I need to retweet the story out there.
Yeah, you need to retweet it.
there.
Yeah, because it was Men's Health. God.
Wow.
Oh, you got to love it. You got to absolutely love it. And that, my friends, is one of the more fascinating conversations you will ever hear on Jam Session, wrapping up our daily trip around the block. And another guest that we used to have on every week on the radio show that is now joining us for the first time here on the Jam Session podcast, and excited to talk to him once again. You know his work very well, I would hope. From the Dallas Morning News, our NFL film analyst John Owning joining us this morning. What's going on, man? How have you been?
I've been good, just getting ready for the big day today. Got seasoning up some ribeye steaks and ready to talk some Cowboys football. As fun or unfun as that might be right now.
All right. Well, we haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks as we've been getting all our technical stuff right. So we got to start with this. My brother, you were banging a drum for Everson Griffin. And now he's here and now he's gone. What were your thoughts on his tenure here, and where did it go right or wrong?
Well, I think his play was incredibly disappointing for basically 9/10 of his tenure here. I think he really started to come on his last 2 weeks, started to show the flashes of the Everson Griffin of old. But just with the Cowboys, he was just not a good scheme fit. I think throughout the beginning, he was not comfortable playing in space, playing in a 2-point stance for those first couple of weeks. And then when he transitioned to a 3-point, he was playing in a 3-point, but he was still playing a space role despite being in a 3-point stance. And he was still struggling to get comfortable. And you could tell that he wasn't really sure with his run fits. He wasn't really activating his pass rush as quickly as he had been in the past. And then these last couple of weeks, it seemed like he was finally starting to play more to his comfort. He was getting more upfield. He was seeing things better with his run fits. He was looking overall a lot more comfortable. So I think it was really smart for the Cowboys to kind of sell high in that situation. As soon, right off, coming off his best game of the year, being able to flip him for anything really, a conditional sticks was a good move, I think, and especially because it lets you get the younger players involved, like Dorrance Armstrong, Randy Gregory. I'm still hoping Bradley and I will get some run one of these years, but yeah. So I would say from an on-play perspective, it was kind of a disappointment, but I'm glad that they were able to still sell high and get something for him in return.
Yeah, a lot to discuss coming off the Philadelphia game, going into Pittsburgh this week for a 2-6 team. And Jacques and I were just talking about this, but obviously at the beginning of the year, the first few weeks, the defense was atrocious. The last 3 weeks, the offense has been atrocious. When you look at how bad this offense has been without Dak Prescott, where do you pinpoint this and say, okay, this is the reason why there's such a struggle for them to move the ball or put up points?
Well, I think last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, it was mainly because Ben DiNucci he's just not a competent NFL quarterback at this point. I came out of the game not feeling really good about how he played, and then you turn on the all-22 and it's even worse. There was plays to be had against that Eagles defense. The Cowboys had receivers running open down the field, but DiNucci just he was hesitating. He was hitching in the pocket. He was just not very comfortable with his reads. He wasn't trusting his eyes. He was panicky in the pocket. He wasn't stepping up. He was drifting backward into pressure, and it would just completely inhibited the Cowboys' ability to put any positive offense, really sustained positive offense on the field. I think Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy did all they could really to get any offense, to get the fact that the Cowboys were able to even pass the 50-yard line on multiple occasions, given how Ben DiNucci was playing, was intriguing and I think promising for the future of the play calling of like Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy in that group. And then before then, I think on top of that, it's the protection. It's, playing Terrence Steele at right tackle, playing a bunch of young guys interiorly before Zach Martin came back in. Andy Dalton's the type of quarterback that if he doesn't have good protection and he can't trust his protection, he's going to struggle. He needs somebody that knows he's going to have time so that he can go through his reads, finds his guys, because he's someone who also gets panicky in the pocket. He doesn't deal with pressure well. So I think those are the biggest issues. When DiNucci was in, he was the biggest issue, but with Dalton, it's how Dalton performs when he's under pressure. And I just don't think the Cowboys offensive line is talented enough with the injuries to allow Collins and Tyron Smith to be able to consistently pass protect for a guy like Andy Dalton. So I really don't think it's going to get all that much better. I think it'll be better than what you saw last week with DiNucci, but I don't think this offense is going to be anything even in the same galaxy as what they were with Dak Prescott the rest of the season.
No, there's some enlightening news as I try to figure out how they're going to score against Pittsburgh.
The Pittsburgh game, if the Cowboys start Terrence Steele opposite TJ Watt, who's leading the league in pass rush win rate, probably the best pass rusher in the NFL this season thus far, that's almost malpractice. I feel bad for Andy Dalton if he gets back from concussion protocol, or DiNucci again, or if they go Garrett Gilbert, whoever it is. I feel really, really bad for them if Terrence Steele is going to be the one going up against TJ Watt.
Yeah, I don't know how they handle that. Well, let's talk about a defensive end who did have a good game. Now, just like you banged the drum for Everson Griffin, you've been banging the drum on DeMarcus Lawrence and telling people, get off of his back. Well, he was very active against Philadelphia and played probably his most complete game. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was DeMarcus Lawrence being DeMarcus Lawrence, in my opinion. I think he really took advantage of the backup tackle for the Eagles, Jordan Mailata. Against the run, he does such a good job of feinting like he's attacking one edge and then popping out to the other. He did that on multiple occasions versus Philadelphia Eagles, pulling guards, pulling tackles. He was doing a really good job of slipping those blocks to make tackles in the backfield. And he's just the Cowboys' most sound run defender, even when he's not penetrating. There was a play yesterday where the Eagles were running a power concept with a pulling guard, and they pulled a tight end across the formation. DeMarcus Lawrence spikes inside, takes out both of them. Xavier Woods stays free, is able to steal the play outside into Jordan Lewis for a stop of 0 yards. So just DeMarcus Lawrence's presence, his gravity against the run is incredibly valuable. And then as a pass rush, he was able to generate a lot of pressure against the Eagles. He was able to get his cross chop going. He was really effective with his inside counter moves because Mailata was really selling out, oversetting to stop that speed, that patented cross chop that DeMarcus Lawrence uses so much to win on the outside edge. So it was just a really complete game. Like you said, I think this game and the Giants game were his two best games of the season. He was really active, making impact against the run, against the pass. Just a really impressive player and someone who Cowboys fans need to appreciate a lot more.
We're talking with John Owning, our NFL film analyst. You can read his work in the Dallas Morning News, and I would encourage you to follow him on Twitter at John Owning as well. Trayvon Diggs showed up on Sunday big time, a couple of interceptions, which is wild. We mentioned this on the episode we did right after the game, that Trayvon Diggs with 2 interceptions this game ties the Cowboys season high for interceptions by a single player the last couple of seasons with 2. But, we saw what he could do at Alabama as a guy who knew how to take the ball away. And you kind of saw, I thought, some of the things that receivers do as he had made that transition in college to cornerback and tracking the ball and doing stuff like that he did really well against Philadelphia.
Yeah, he did a really good job playing from off coverage. He was really patient when he was giving the receivers that cushion, staying on top of vertical routes for the most part. Did a really, really good job driving on crossers as well. That's something that he's kind of struggled with. He's been getting disconnected with receivers on those cross-country crossers that come, from the wide side of the formation all the way across to the near side. He's been struggling on those. But against the Eagles, he was doing a good job of really staying connected, driving on those. He still saw some of his issues. He did give up 2 touchdowns against the Eagles. He saw some issues in his press man. His technique in press man coverage right now is a little bit wonky. It's a little disjointed. It's causing him to give away early separation a lot. That's allowing the receivers to stack him. That's how that Travis Fulgham touchdown happened on him. He was just a little bit inefficient with his press technique that allowed Fulgham to get behind him and catch that vertical pass down into the corner of the end zone. But I really like the improvement he's showing week to week. He does the little things well. He hustles. He's not afraid to throw his body in there against the run. He's aware in zone. You don't see him making a ton of mental mistakes from a assignment perspective. It's more of an execution thing right now. So I think I'm really intrigued about what he's going to be moving forward, because as a rookie corner, you're going to have a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And I think that Eagles game was kind of a microcosm of that. But it was nice to see that he's starting to have more ups than he was downs, whereas, weeks before it was a lot more downs than it was ups.
Yeah, that's a That's a good thing. I got two guys I want to ask you about from a technical standpoint, John. What's been your thoughts on Aldon Smith? 4 sacks in the first 3 games, 1 barely in the last 5. And I say barely because he got credit for a sack where Carson Wentz slides. And he actually jumped over Carson Wentz so he wouldn't step on him, and he got credit for a sack for that. But so in my mind, he basically doesn't have a sack in the last 5 games.
Yeah, I think it's a thing that you're seeing. Aldon Smith, he's not getting as much run against tight ends as he was at the beginning of the year. The Cowboys teams were kind of seeing where Aldon Smith was after the 5-year layoff, so they were kind of content with allowing 1 or 2 tight ends to block him on the edge consistently. But as the season has gone on, you have seen the teams make a more concerted effort toward game planning to stop him, so they're putting more tackles on him. They're chipping him more often, and that's just because he doesn't have the explosive athletic abilities to be able to consistently win when he's getting double teamed, when teams are putting more attention on him to stop him consistently. So the technique hasn't really changed. Nothing much has really changed. He's still doing the same thing. He's still kind of hit or miss against the run. He's kind of he either penetrates or he'll get blown out of his gap. He kind of guesses a little bit too much. But as a pass rusher, he's just working that power. And when it's a lot harder to work power against a 330-pound offensive tackle than it is a 267 or 270-pound tight end. So I think that's mainly the biggest reason. Everybody's talking about he looks like he's injured or anything, but I don't see it. I think he's kind of been a plotter the whole entire season. I just think opposing teams are doing a better job of game planning against him now that they know that he's actually someone they have to game plan for.
And the other guy, and this bothers me, but it just is what it is, man. What do you see with Tyrone Crawford, who does not have a tackle in the last 4 games?
Oh, man.
Not bad.
Wow. The Philadelphia game might have been Crawford's worst game that he's ever had with a Cowboys uniform. It was bad. He's just a terrible fit for this Jim Tomsula, Mike Nolan defensive line scheme. He does not play double teams well. He doesn't play that kind of read and react, kind of stay neutral, try to hold on to your block, shed once the running back makes a decision. He's a more one-gap player that gets vertical, uses his quickness, uses that. He has a nice spin move, a nice arm over move to penetrate, and like he did in the previous years under a Marinelli screen. But he's just a terrible fit. He's getting driven back into the linebackers in almost every combo block. He's not holding his ground against single, but he's not getting off blocks on a single block. He's not being as effective as a pass rusher as you would hope given his struggles against the run. He's just been a below replacement player, and the fact that you're playing a below replacement player like $8 million this year is just really disheartening for the Cowboys, I think.
All right, so it's a 2-6 team, as we know. I think everybody believes they'll be 2-7 going into the bye. The season is halfway over. We've talked about in the past CeeDee Lamb. You mentioned Trayvon Diggs kind of improving, but where do you see bright spots, if there are any more, for this team to try to look for or fans to watch for here in the back half of this crappy season?
I think Tyler Biadasz is a guy that I'm paying really close attention to because I think he's the center of the future. He's been kind of having an up and down ways, but he's been showing a lot of good things in the run game. Mentally, he's pointing out protections pretty well, figuring out making those mic points, figuring out where the blitz is coming from, best way to slide the protection, all of those type of things he's doing really well. You're seeing some struggles in pass protection when he's singled up, but I think as he gets more experience, those type of things, I think he could be somebody who in the future, the experience he's gaining in this kind of lost season is going to be really beneficial for him moving forward next year and the year after that. So I'm really excited about I'm not really excited, but he's probably one of the bright spots that I'm looking forward to over the last half of the season. And then I think Randy Gregory is a guy that's going to be intriguing to watch. He's against the run. He's a work in progress against the Eagles. He struggled against the run. He struggled with his run responsibilities in the new scheme because he's learning a new scheme just like everybody else. He grew up in the Marinelli scheme with the Cowboys, even though he wasn't with them that often. But so his ability to generate pressure as a pass rusher, I'm hoping, is going to improve as he continues to get more snaps and continues to get more comfortable playing in the NFL again. So I think those are the two guys that I'm looking forward to most as potential bright spots that could pay off down the line in this lost season.
John Owning, man, good to talk to you. We appreciate you spending part of your morning here with us.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys just having me on. I'm glad to be on the podcast.
Nice. And as we move forward, time once again to remind you of one of our sponsors, one of our very first sponsors, actually. And I was shopping. I went to Kroger yesterday for groceries and picked up 3 pounds of the wings. Now, I did all 3 pounds mango habanero. I'm going to grill them out here this week, and I'm looking forward to that. I know many of you have tried the wings at Kroger. They're available at Kroger stores across North Texas. So if you're grocery shopping, make sure you grab some. They're in the section. You go where the fish are and the meats and stuff, where you got to talk to the guy at the counter, and you just tell them, I want the wings. Get me 2-3 pounds of the wings, and they will pack those up and wrap them up for you. These wings are not breaded like a lot of other wings, so all you're getting is the meat and the flavor, and I'm telling you, the mango habanero is awesome. I almost feel like I could eat them every day. Like, they're that good to me. They also have buffalo blue cheese, so check them out.
I was going to say, and they taste great in the air fryer.
Yeah, so if you have an air fryer, do them that way. I grill them and Jacques does them in the air fryer. But find them, the wings at Kroger, mango habanero or buffalo blue cheese. Add them to your grilling or air frying list, perhaps, for this weekend. But we move forth here, and it is a really interesting season in the world of college football, as I think we all figured it might be. But as you look at it over the course, here we are about a little over halfway, depending, and then you get to the Pac-12 and they haven't even played yet.
Which is crazy.
I know. It's so wild to sit here and you look at some of these teams, and that's why, to me, and I know they're going to end up playing, I think it's 7 games where they're just like super compacted week after week after week. But then you wonder, like, for instance, they just called off the Wisconsin-Purdue game due to coronavirus cases. And you kind of wonder, like, if the Pac-12 has to miss a game or two, how do you weight those guys at all against other conferences that are going to end up playing 9, 10, 11 games?
Oh, I think it's just, man, if we're going to be honest about it, and I don't know that this is any different in a lot of cases from some years, it's just more transparent. It's going to be a look test, man. I mean, I think that's the only way you're going to do it. So if you look, let's say USC, because they're the highest profile team out there, even though they ain't been no good lately.
Right.
If they were to play 7 games and they won their 7 games the way Alabama wins its games, you'd probably say, well, damn, they ain't played but 7 games. And maybe you don't think the competition is that great, but they have destroyed everybody. So, yeah, let's throw them in there. To me, that's the only way you're going to do it, because it's going to be even more subjective than usual, because there's going to be such a different discrepancy in games and teams and strength of schedule that all you can do is look chess.
Yeah, and, yes, the Pac-12 does begin play this weekend. You've got USC, who's the 20th ranked team in the country, and they'll be taking on Arizona State. So we'll finally get a little bit of that Pac-12 action. But coming off last weekend, it's still, and I don't think it's going to be any different, barring some sort of a colossal upset. Even without Trevor Lawrence, Clemson looks dominant, Bama looks dominant, and Ohio State looks dominant. Now, I will say, is Trevor Lawrence's absence going to be a hiccup or a problem, because he's not going to be able to play again this weekend? And yeah, this is the one. This is really the last test for Clemson as they go on the road on Saturday night to take on the number 4 team in the country, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
You know what's interesting about this game, and I'm looking forward to it, although I got to be honest with you. I've got to do a couple of husband duty things.
Oh, look at you.
And, I'm hoping I can watch the game.
All right, fair enough.
Typically, I can get out of them, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get out of it. So I've decided I got my extra battery so I can have my phone in my pocket, and I will sneak off to some corner by myself for periods of time if I have to. But the one thing I'm looking forward to, or the one thing I thought about this game, Matt, it seems to me it's a no-lose proposition for Clemson. If they win, well, then, hell, you beat number 4 Notre Dame on the road without your quarterback. My God, you guys are good.
Right.
And if they lose, well, hell, everybody knows if they had Trevor Lawrence, they would have won. So I don't think they get dinged at all if they lose, and I've come to this conclusion. See, I think last week we were trying to figure out where's the fourth team coming from. Matt, the fourth team might be coming from this game. If Notre Dame can win it.
Yeah, that's very true, actually.
Then
because then the committee goes, well, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, and if Trevor Lawrence has played, and you almost forgive him for that.
Right, and then you go, if everything falls the way we think it falls, then it becomes Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. That could be the way that it plays out if Notre Dame is actually able to clip Clemson here, and then you would assume that they would go ahead and meet again in the ACC championship game. Yeah, it could very well be that way.
Now, see, you poo-pooed this notion last week, but like if Clemson wins the game, I'm telling you, bro, you have to keep an eye out on those Cincinnati Bearcats because they already played, I think, the two toughest teams they'll play because SMU was number 16 when they beat them. Now, don't laugh because I say SMU, but they thumped SMU by like 20 or 30 here. And then they played Memphis, which is a program that has respect because it's been pretty good for about 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
And they thumped them by like 20 or 30. And so if they can go undefeated and they're thumping people and their defense is nationally ranked, if there's no other worthy Power 5 team, then that's how they can get in because they will start to squawk about, hell, what can we do? We're 11-0 and we beat everybody by an average of 30 points. I mean, what else you want us to do?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and we don't know how the committee is going to look at it, obviously, because we've never been in this situation before. If there is a worthy one-loss Power 5 team, I think they would put them in over Cincinnati, despite the fact that, like, to your point, Cincinnati knocked off SMU and not just knocked them off, but blew them out, and it was an easy win. Part of their problem is that the Memphis Tigers are not what people thought they would be this year, and Memphis has kind of struggled a little bit. Not only did they lose that game, but they also had lost, of course, prior to that when SMU beat them, so they had a couple of losses, and they're not ranked, so SMU is really the feather in their cap. Is that enough for Cincinnati? I mean, look, who knows when the playoff selection committee meets and actually lays out their rankings, you'll get a better idea. Do they believe that Cincinnati is as highly ranked as the coaches and the AP voters believe that they should be? I don't know. The Pac-12 getting going, what is that going to mean, and how is that going to affect the rankings if, you know, a USC or an Oregon or whomever goes out this weekend and just annihilates, like Oregon plays Stanford this weekend? What if Oregon, as the 12th team in the country, wins 49-0 and all? Whoa, okay, well, I guess we got to bump Oregon up. We'll see how it plays out. You know, it's going to be interesting. It may be the best shot, and if it's not Cincinnati, you know, it may be a team like BYU that's got a shot, and they play on the road at Boise State, who's ranked number 21 in the country. And, you know, BYU is an interesting team as well because they're probably going to finish the season undefeated. But it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, okay, who have you beaten? And obviously Cincinnati is ranked a little bit higher. I just don't know how the committee looks at group of 5 scheduling and conference play when neither one of those teams had an opportunity to surprise somebody with one of those random group of 5 versus Power 5 games where they could upset at least a Power 5 team of some sort.
But see, it rolls both ways, man. This is the year you can do something you normally wouldn't do because everybody's looking at the year as crazy anyway. So if normally you're biased against, you know, group of 5 teams, this might be the one year you go, you know, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Give them a shot. Ain't nobody traveling to the games anyway, so we ain't got to worry about ticket sales like we normally would and who's going to sell out and all of that stuff. I think we can't be surprised by anything we do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, not at this point, just because of the way, especially with the Pac-12 jumping in so late. You almost got to believe that somebody from the Pac-12 will have to run the table to get in because they just won't have a large sampling size. And to your point, like Cincinnati, I think, is going to end up playing 10 or 11 games. BYU, I think, is playing the same. You know, and if you're waiting 10 or 11 games versus 7, maybe there's enough. Okay, you didn't play Power 5 competition, but you've got 4 more wins.
Right.
So we shall see. The other big game this weekend is, and they don't call it this anymore, but come on, we know. the world's largest outdoor cocktail party between number 8 Florida and number 5 Georgia from Jacksonville out there in the SEC. And this is a big one because Georgia and Florida both already have a loss. And so this is going to be really for who is going to get beaten by Alabama in the SEC title game. I mean,
when you say it like that, I don't think you're wrong here. I think Florida's overrated. I think they're solid, but they aren't anything close to being special this year.
Right.
And Georgia, they've already had their opportunity.
Yeah, and they lost. Now, again, if they can beat Florida and they finish the season with one loss and get another shot at Alabama, who knows? Because at some point, one of Nick Saban's former assistants is going to beat him. It's going to happen eventually. And with an opportunity to see Alabama for a second time later in the year, maybe that would help them. And then that could be all kinds of chaos. Because if that were to happen and Georgia were to beat Alabama the second time around, I could see the committee putting both of them in the playoff anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if it's not going to be a group of 5 schools, it's going to be one of those Notre Dame, Georgias that everybody knows about and respects. So, their task is to keep on winning and force the committee to make a tough choice.
Yeah, outside of those two matchups, there's really nothing that jumps out. I mean, BYU, Boise State, that's a Friday night game between number 9 and number 21. Texas is at home, ranked again as the 22nd team in the country after that road win over Oklahoma State. And they've got West Virginia. But as we mentioned this, maybe it was when we were on the ticket on Sunday from noon to 3, but we were talking about the Big 12 conference right now. Iowa State and K-State are leading the conference. Now, every single team, as we know, has at least one loss. Oklahoma State joins the two that I just mentioned as the one-loss teams, and then everybody after that has at least 2 losses. As it sits right now, who the hell knows who's going to wind up in the Big 12 title game? I mean, it literally, there are, 6 of the 10 teams right now. You could see a path to where they could wind up in the Big 12 title game.
No, I mean, I don't think you can tell at all. I think it's just a matter of, we just have to see how it plays out. None of them. I mean, I still think Oklahoma's the best team, but they sat up there and lost a couple games. Their whole thing is, can we get to the title game? But the other teams are so bad. I mean, do you think they're not going to lose again? Like, I'm
right?
serious. Like, Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State. Okay, now Oklahoma State's got 2 losses.
Right.
As simple as that. So nothing would surprise me. I still think when it's all said and done that Oklahoma will be in the championship game. They'll play whoever they play, and then they'll beat them, and they'll be your Big 12 champ again.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We shall see. I mean, it may come down to they can't lose again. If they lose again, they're not going to make the Big 12 title game. And who knows? Is Oklahoma State better than them? Well, Oklahoma State couldn't beat Texas, but they turned it over 4 times to help Texas in that game. So we shall see in Bedlam whenever that happens. And so there it is. I mean, college football, it's every conference is finally beginning play, but it's really strange when you have a team who's number 9 in the country and BYU is 7-0, and you have a team that's 20th in the country and USC that is 0-0.
True that.
A reminder again of one of our sponsors, Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall. They continue, of course, to they continue to supply over 400 beers from across the world, including a lot that are available locally. It is a local family-owned business. Jason and Deidre, they will take care of you. So if you are in the Rockwall area or out there on the eastern side of Dallas-Fort Worth, they are located in Rockwall, right there, downtown Rockwall on the square. And it is a fantastic place. And probably my favorite thing about it is that everything in the store is available in singles. So if you listen to us talk about all the different beers that we try, and we're going out to all these breweries and whatnot, and you're like, man, I want to try them, but I don't know if I can do a 6-pack. Okay, go to Beer Geeks, because Beer Geeks will hook you up. Want to try 6? Great. They could all be different. Want to try 10? It's however you want to lay it out at Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall. So swing by there on the square in downtown Rockwall. Say hello to Jason and Deidre and support our sponsors as they support us and help to make Jam Session Podcast a continuing thing. But now, this is interesting, and it's funny because at 2-6 and halfway through the season, I think as fans, a lot of people are just done with the Cowboys this year. They're just done. Now, you're going to watch the games and you'll hang out with your friends and you'll scream at the TV. But the reality of it is, I think for the most part, all of us have already turned our attentions to the upcoming draft. And when I say upcoming, I'm talking about in 5 months or 6 months. But that's where we're at, isn't it? I mean, at 2-6, you have to kind of turn your attentions forward in the world.
At this point, there's only two things to talk about. It's all about what, Matt? Player development and the draft. And so if you're not going to be talking about player development, then the only other thing to talk about is the draft. So that tells us, and so that conversation becomes, all right, so where do you think they're going to be in the draft? Mm-hmm. Who's going to finish higher? And, I've told you, man, that I think they're going to have a hard time winning games. And if you're going to have a hard time winning games compared to these other bad teams, like these other bad teams, I think they have the hope of the future to drive them at the end of the year. For example, now this is way far out, Matt, but for example, think about this, dog. Last game of the year, Cowboys play the Giants. Who's got more incentive to win that game?
The Giants?
The Giants do. Because it's going to be a younger team, a younger quarterback.
Right.
More about, and they've been losing like last night. They've been losing a lot of games that young teams lose because they don't know how to win. They'll want to springboard into a victory. Now think about this. Now their fan base will be like, we need to lose. I'm just going to ask you, Matt. Just going to ask you. Based on what you know about their coach and what you've read about him and where he came from, you think he's got any interest in losing?
No, not at all. Not to mention the fact Jason Garrett's up there as well.
Right. And so when you look at it like that, those guys aren't going to have any interest in losing. And they're going to, I think, inspire their teams to try to play hard and play good and represent and be the best version of yourself and all those other cliches. As the Cowboys have a top-heavy team that has had an awful year based on expectations. Going up to the cold in New York, you think they're going to be interested and excited to play that game?
No.
Not at all. That looks like an L to me. You can say the same thing about Cincinnati in December. And you can say the same thing about Minnesota, except that Minnesota's got more offensive talent. And until this version of the Cowboys prove they can score more than a touchdown in a game, I don't know that they can, bro. My whole point, it's going to be hard to get some dubs around here, man.
It is.
And so I don't know, look, who are the teams behind them right now? I can see the Jets finishing number 1 overall.
Right. I
think Jacksonville is just awful. They're probably number 2. Right now, the Giants are number 3. Who's number 4?
Atlanta.
No, I think the Cowboys are ahead of Atlanta.
No, because they lost the tiebreaker.
Oh.
So technically, yeah, because the Cowboys technically, remember, because they beat Atlanta. And so technically, though they have the same record, the Atlanta Falcons are ahead of them because of that. When you look at it like on a standings basis or what,
all right,
whatever.
Well, I will say this, that I think Atlanta is a better team because they've been blowing fourth quarter leads and losing games they should win.
Yeah, so Houston's the other team.
Yeah, Houston's the other team.
Right, who's actually ahead of them at 1-6 and not 2-6.
And see, Houston, I don't think their personnel is as bad as Cowboys. I think theirs is more a product of having a really, really, really rugged schedule early. And so I see Houston winning more games than the Cowboys.
Yeah, because Deshaun Watson is still playing. I mean, it's not like their quarterback is out for the year and they've got to go with a random assortment of backups. Deshaun Watson will win a couple of games along the way. I agree with you about Atlanta. I think what this is going to come down to is Jacksonville, the Jets, and Dallas as the 3 worst teams in the NFL. And then we will see how the Giants play into that, who right now are ahead of them. But to your point, as the season progresses, I mean, they almost beat New England last night. They're not trying to lose. They don't look like they want to lose. They'll get a couple of games somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I think so. And don't forget, man, Miami owns Houston's pick.
Right.
So they don't have any incentive to lose. You know what I mean?
Right. They're not getting like a high draft pick regardless of what it is. And so when you look at this, you kind of wonder if they finish 2-14 and lose out, they're going to get one of the top 2 picks in the draft. It would be, you just don't see that happen. And you can go back and look at the last few years. The top 2 picks last year were 2-14, 3-13. The year before was 3-13, had the number 1 pick, and then the 2 4-win teams were 2nd and 3rd. Cleveland in 17 had 0 wins, but the 2nd pick went to a 3-13 team. And then in 2016, Cleveland was 1-15, San Francisco 2-14, Jacksonville 3-13. If you're going to finish with 2 or 3 wins this year, you're going to get one of the top 3 picks.
Right.
And so that's where I think you look at this and you say, I don't know, anything can happen on any given Sunday. I keep figuring at some point they stumble into a win on accident. But I don't know when it is.
Dude, I don't believe that. I don't believe it. It's that stumble into a win by accident. See, dude, I don't know that they can do that because there's so much, they're so bad. Like, you have to have a level of competency to stumble into a win. And right now, they have no confidence, so they got no swag. They don't believe. And so now they need a little good fortune to smile on them. But every game they lose, they get more beat down, more beat down, more beat down. And so the more they see, I mean, you know damn well they're going to get hammered by Pittsburgh this week.
Yep.
Then comes a bye week, and I'm not going to be all shocked and surprised if they get hammered by Minnesota, because Minnesota got enough offensive skill people to make it hard on them, and they'll just run Dalvin Cook 28 times for 170 yards. And so now the beat down mentally, it just gets more and more and more. So by the time you get to those teams you've talented, you're capable of beating because your talent level's the same.
Right.
Dude, you're so despondent and distraught and so beat down by the season, you can't get it up without Blue Chew.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. You're at that point very quickly here. And so I think they're going to finish either 2-14 or 3-13. And if that is the case, when you just look historically across the board at the NFL, you're going to get a top 3 pick. The Jets are going to, I think, at some point win a game, but they may not. I think the Jets will finish ahead of the Cowboys. Outside of that, I'm telling you, it's on the table for the Cowboys to get the 2nd overall pick in the draft and then have to decide what they want to do with that. And this is a weird year because it's going to be a very quarterback-heavy first round, because it's not just, the guys that we have talked about before, which are the 2 obvious choices. Trevor Lawrence is going to go number 1 overall. Justin Fields is going to be up there. Trey Lance, the kid from North Dakota State, is going to be up there as well. But, there's a couple of other quarterbacks that are projected right now anyway to go in the top 10. And I know it's early, and who knows how this changes, but the kid at BYU is projected as a high pick. And if that happens, they're going to have an interesting decision to make, a very interesting decision to make, I think, because it's going to be, let's say they finish 2nd overall. Right. And somebody else out there is like, we want Fields or the kid from BYU or the Trey Lance kid. Zach Wilson's his name. I was trying to remember who it was.
Right.
And if that's the case, do you want the bevy of picks, or do you want to stay at number 2? And it kind of feels like it's unfortunate because there's not a Chase Young dominant, wow, you're taking this dude for sure, you would never consider trading the 2nd pick. But the Sewell kid, the left tackle out of Oregon, seems to be pretty much the consensus top lineman. So do you sit there at number 2 and say, okay, let's take the Tyron Smith of the future, or do we trade for a bevy of picks and trade down a few slots and take one of the, because there's like 3 cornerbacks that are all pretty much in the same group that you could get, edge rushers. There's a couple, the Rousseau kid from Miami, and Pay from Michigan that are up there. I'll be really curious to see what they decide to do.
No, I think that's a very intriguing question. Somebody's always going to want to move up and take the quarterback. You got different needs, but typically you take the best player, man, especially at that level. Just take the best player, a guy you can't miss on. The tackle from Oregon is supposed to be the truth.
Right.
He's a plug and play. Plus, it's a and somebody, they got enough offensive linemen.
Not
really?
Anymore.
Really? You think so?
I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Tyron Smith retires at the end of the year.
Well, that's available if he does, and you're covered. And don't forget, man, left tackle is no different than pass rusher. It's a premium position. There's left tackle, there's quarterback, there's receiver, there's pass rusher, there's cornerback. Those are premium positions on the football field because they're either helping you score or stopping the other team from scoring. Perimeter players. And so that's where the game is, man. So take that high draft pick. And, that raised the question of would you pay Dak or would you take Justin Fields or whoever the other kid is from North Dakota.
Lance.
State.
Trey Lance, yeah.
Trey Lance. Would you take him? I would probably be, this is just me now. I think elite level quarterbacks are so hard to find. And there certainly ain't no guarantee that you draft one, no matter where you draft it, even Trevor Lawrence, that I would take that second pick or that third pick, and I would trade that thing.
Yeah.
Drop down to like 8 or 9 and use those picks that I got to rebuild my team because you'd probably have 9, the other team's second round pick, which may be, 9th pick of the second round, your own 4th pick in the second round.
Right.
The same in the third round, or take those 3s and move up and go get yourself 3 second-round picks. And then the next year you'd have your 1 and their 1, which would allow you, if some elite person came out, to move up in the top 5 of the draft with those 2 picks. But it gives you opportunity to move around the board and make it happen.
Yeah, it really does. And I think it's interesting, too, because you list the teams that are right there kind of with the Cowboys right now, and it'll be really interesting because I don't think they're going to be quite as bad as the Cowboys, but there are going to be teams in that 7, 8, 9 spot. Minnesota comes to mind as a team that might be looking for a future quarterback. Washington with Ron Rivera, who's already made it known, obviously. Dwayne Haskins isn't his guy. Would Washington be interested in coming up for a Fields or a Lance? The New England Patriots,
right,
who right now are 2-5, is Bill Belichick one of those guys? If he's sitting there at 9, that gets on the phone with the Cowboys and says, "Hey, I've identified this guy. Trey Lance is my guy," or whomever it is. So I think it'll be an opportunity for the Cowboys if they are at 2 or 3, to actually trade down 4 or 5 spots, still get one of the top 2 or 3 cornerbacks in this draft, and pick up an extra first rounder.
Yeah, sounds like a plan to me.
So we shall see, but I mean, this is where we're at, man. We're already this excited about it. Because I'm sure as hell not excited about watching them get their ass kicked on Sunday against the Steelers.
Check this out, man. It's almost time to bring out the draft machine.
It feels like it just might be in the middle of the season before it even ends. Joined now by, used to have him on the radio show every week, and happy to have him now on the podcast, ESPN NFL Nation Cowboys reporter, the greatness of Todd Archer joining us here. What's going on, man? How are you?
Fellas, how we doing? Thanks for having me on for the first time. And evidently you lost my number for the last few weeks, so glad to see you could fit me in.
No, we're just trying to get all the technical glitches worked out, and we're trying to find a sponsor for you. So, we're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you've been listening to every...
I think JJT Media should be the sponsor, shouldn't it?
I mean, that is a great point. Come on, Jacques, step up.
We can't afford Archer's rate just yet. Give us time. Give us time.
Well, let's take a look back at whatever it was in Philadelphia that the Cowboys put out there. And I saw Jerry this morning on the flagship mention something about Ben DiNucci just almost like he couldn't handle it, I think was the quote, something like that. What was your thought about Ben DiNucci and his performance on Sunday night?
You knew it was going to be a struggle, right? You knew it wasn't going to be a smooth looking operation. It's a 7th round pick, but I didn't expect, the guy could have been picked off 7 times, maybe. If you go back and look at all of the throws he had. And one thing it brought to mind was like, this is what it would have looked like if Tony Romo played as an undrafted rookie in 2003. Just helter-skelter all over the place, running around. And look, I'm not saying DiNucci's going to turn into Romo by any stretch, but that's what it kind of reminded me of, because Parcells always told us, you guys just don't know. You want to throw the guy out there, you're going to lose the player. And really the Cowboys had no option other than to play DiNucci. But I knew it was going to be not good, but I didn't think it would be that bad.
Yeah, see, this was weird to me because I didn't feel like, let me see, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't look to me like he was overwhelmed from the game standpoint. Like I'm playing in the NFL. It was more like the more the game went on, the more he sped it up, as opposed to it should have slowed down just a little bit for him. And so it came off looking to me like he was just a little skittish because there were receivers there on occasion. And that whole sidearm funky delivery thing, bro, I was like, wow, he really is throwing from second base.
Yeah, that's what Al Michaels kept talking about. There's another sidearm delivery. And I tweeted, no, Al, this is how he throws. It's not about different arm angles. This is how the dude throws. And, that's obviously that motion doesn't allow you to be very accurate at times in key moments. But when you said there were receivers that are open, I guess the only receiver that was open was Michael Gallup because he was the only guy he threw it to. Man, it didn't seem like he really went from one read to the next. It was like, first read, okay, I'm going here.
That felt to me like that's like, for whatever reason, like that's my boy, and maybe Gallup worked with him some after practice.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's my guy. Like, I don't even think he was going. I like this. Oh, Gallup's out here? Yeah, there's where I'm going with the ball because that's my guy.
And this is a thing I don't understand about the passing game, and I asked McCarthy about it Monday in his press conference with us. Like, okay, Dak averaged 8.4 yards per attempt, and he's a really good quarterback. Was having the best throw of his career. All that stuff is all true. Andy Dalton's averaging 5.4 yards an attempt, and DiNucci's at 5.1, and I believe that includes a 30-yard pass that he had to Cooper when he came in a couple weeks ago. What's happened? Like, how does it just shrivel up that much? It can't be. It's got to be the way they're calling the game. And Dak was just that great. We knew he was great, but it shouldn't be that much of a drop off. Jacques, we've talked about it, right, with the defense.
Right.
They should be bad. They shouldn't be historically bad. Like, this offense shouldn't be. You know, it's not going to be good, but it shouldn't be historically bad.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm just struggling with this thing.
Well, I think that's I think, and I'm as guilty of it as the next person. I think you have to ask the question just like that because you've asked McCarthy a hell of a lot more questions than I have. But now this is me talking, nobody else. He can be a little obtuse on the questions, meaning like this, and I don't mean like being a smart aleck. I mean just like he just doesn't get the question. And this is why you missed the walk-off where you could, like, explain it to him and go into greater detail. But since you can't, you just got to take what you can get. And the question might just be, hey, Mike, Dak averaged 8.5 yards an attempt. Andy Dalton averaged 5. DiNucci's averaging 5.1. How come? And just
I thought that's what I asked.
No, you threw a little more on there, and, you literally just got to leave it like that.
And then he goes, well, I don't play fantasy football. I don't know.
No, that was to my question about the offensive line.
Right.
And why don't you play Zach Martin at right tackle, to which he goes into because offensive line, we've never heard coaches say you play the best 5 and then you figure out positions to put them in. We've never heard a coach say that before. I'm sorry. I don't need to see Terrence Steele play anymore. I just don't. I mean,
no, it's matter of fact, you're right, because I remember it. And for me, it all started with Hudson Houck in the 90s. Like, we get our 5 best linemen and then we figure out what they can do, because that's why Flozell Adams started off at guard, I think, before moving to left tackle. That's why Larry Allen played all over the line before settling in at guard. And that's just kind of what you do. I want my 5 best guys out there, and then, we'll try our best to make it work from there.
And with, look, I'm not picking on Terrence Steele. It's an undrafted free agent. It's a really cool story when you think about no offseason to becoming a starter. But at some point, like, are they grooming him to be, like, the replacement for Leo Collins down the road? Like, what are you getting out of it? Is he going to be the swing tackle going forward? What are they getting out of this by sticking with him? I'd rather have an answer on my 3rd-round pick from 2019 in Connor McGovern and say, we got to play this guy more than just this one start. Mm-hmm. And by the way, he wasn't as bad as everybody thought in the game against, did they play before Philly? Washington. He wasn't as bad. Now, he had a couple of mistakes. Yeah. We can go through everybody in that line. There wasn't one guy with a clean game. I'd rather have an answer on that guy, a guy that I invested a 3rd-round pick who was higher on my draft board than my actual 2nd-round pick. I'd rather see what this guy can do. And then, Zach can move back to guard in 2021.
Yeah, you would think at some point they would have to do something like that, especially like you're talking about, and Jacques mentioned it. I mean, if you're designing the offensive game plan the way that they did against Philadelphia, and you have to do that because your offensive line is so weak that you don't feel like you have time to do anything other than turn around and fire it to Michael Gallup immediately, don't you have to make a change up front to see if something else will work?
Yeah. I mean, I think the game plan was that way because, all right, we just can't have DiNucci going 1 read, 2 read, 3 reads. Let's just get it and go and junk it up with all these trick plays. It reminded me, I wasn't covering the Bengals at this time. And Jacques, I don't know if you were covering. Were you covering the Bengals in 95 or the Cowboys in 95?
Yeah, that was my debut season, my virgin run.
25 years, come on.
I think it was maybe Jeff Blake's first start or first or second start, and he came in and was just throwing it all over the place. And like at halftime, or in between one series, a media buddy of mine was in the bathroom and Coslet's in there, going to the bathroom, cigarette in his mouth. He's like, I got nothing left. Like, that's what that game reminded me of the other day, because how many, the double reverse, the fake double reverse, here comes Cedric Wilson, let's see if he can throw a pass. They were trying so many different, Zeke and the Wildcat. They were trying so many things that like, at some point they're like, if this is the best way we got to go, we got to go. But I don't know if it's because of the line, and I think it's just more because of how limited they felt they were at quarterback.
Well, I mean, I think that's some of the reason why, as we get back to talking about the passing game, one of the reasons Dak is averaging 8.5 yards a attempt is he was leading the league, I think, in completions of 20 yards or more. Because he was going vertical. Yeah, he was going vertical quite a bit. Well, this either because the line can't block long enough, and these guys aren't, well, especially Dalton, isn't mobile enough to escape the pocket a little bit like Dak. They're not calling him, they're not throwing him, but clearly the deep ball has disappeared from the offense. And, hell, we've gone from talking about 3 1,000-yard receivers to, you think either of them will get to 700 yards this year?
Well, but that's like, think of the Giants game that they won. Dalton threw it down the field. The deep ball to Gallup, set up the kick. I mean, he can do it. And this line that was playing for Dak isn't, okay, you have Cam Fleming in at left tackle, who theoretically should be an upgrade over Brandon Knight. Right? I mean, I don't
know that he is.
Yeah.
But he might not be an upgrade, but I don't know if it's a downgrade. I think it's a wash. I mean, so your rookie center has started the last 4 games. Be honest, they seem to be high on him. You add Zach Martin back. You've started Steele at right tackle every single game. And then the left guard is your second-round pick from 2018, who evidently has been willed a job for life. So what's different about the line?
I think I don't know, other than I think that I think if you scrape everything away, they just got a hell of a lot more confidence in Dak and his ability to manage whatever may or may not go right. And so you just call the game differently and you do different things, because if you make a mistake, Dak will cover for it. Or, I've heard a lot of this from announcers, and I can't sit here and tell you from my own perspective, but, I can't even remember which announcer, but it was one of them, trust me, is that, even when the plays comes in, Dak is great about getting into the right play or the exact right look or altering what's come in and moving guys around and all that stuff that Dalton can probably do, but there's no way DiNucci could do it.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, though, Dalton's played more football than Dak. Now, not in this offense, I grant you, but I mean, it's not like this offense is exponentially different than any other offense in the NFL that guys run. So,
was Dalton bad against Arizona, or did he have no time to be good?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would put that on circumstances of the game, with the defense being dreadful and they're trailing and Zeke fumbling and all that kind of stuff. So that was partially on circumstances of the game. The Washington one, they literally just could not block that front.
Right. So
yeah.
That was the time when the offensive line got overrun. If we're being truthful, I guess.
Right. And then Zach got hurt in the first quarter, so maybe that played a huge role in that. So
yeah.
I don't know, bro. They got
problems.
But
like you said, though, it should be. We know it's not going to be as good as it was, but it shouldn't be historically bad.
Right.
They should not go 3 games scoring 1 touchdown.
7 points and 250 yards from 32 points and 488 yards. That's incredible, man.
So it's 2015 all over again when Romo played his 4 games. Hey, that offense looked pretty good. The other 12 games, the offense was dreadful. They had 8 games where they didn't score at least 20 points that year.
So
it's wild because they drafted Dalton so that this wouldn't happen.
Right.
That was supposed to be. Yeah. So with Dalton and the hit that we all saw a couple of weeks ago, is he going to be available? Well, do you think he'll get out of concussion protocol by the time they get ready for Pittsburgh this week?
That's what it seems like when you heard McCarthy talk about we're hopeful, and he was doing a lot better on Saturday than he was earlier in the week, and all that stuff. But as of yesterday, when we talked to McCarthy, he hadn't been cleared yet. So I don't know what else you got to do to get cleared through the final stages of the protocol. But I guess the expectation is he'd be back there from the concussion and practicing on Wednesday.
Well, I think Wednesday's the big day. And here's my only question about that, man. It looked to me, now I don't know, maybe you know, but I don't know. It looked to me like he got knocked out, even if it was for, 10, 20 seconds. And if that's the case, then it could potentially take him longer to get back than, and when I say longer, like if you don't get out of concussion protocol until Friday, well, you're kind of screwed for the week, bro.
Yeah.
Just because he got knocked out, as opposed to what we typically see is, you're a little dizzy and they go back and say, hey, now you got to go out, but you were never out cold.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I don't know, did he seem like he was, if he was knocked out, I'd say it was probably
dead
closer.
For a minute.
Yeah, for real.
Don't you think it was closer to the 10 seconds than the 20 seconds if he was?
Yeah.
I mean, no one told me he was, usually when guys get knocked out, they're like actually literally snoring. So I don't know if he was actually snoring out there or not. But again, just going off, you try to read between the lines a little bit on what the coach says and what people in the organization tell you, that they think from this concussion he'll be able to be back, especially if McCarthy saying he was better on Saturday.
All right, well, let's hope he's back. What do you think about the defense? And there seems to be a little bit of a moral victory thing going around.
Oh my gosh!
All right, moral victories.
Did I touch a nerve?
Sweet, 2-6, but your moral victories.
Yeah, okay. And look, it's completely damning with faint praise, right? Yeah, they were better. They were better against Philadelphia. But guess what? Philadelphia is awful on offense. We came out of the Giants game thinking that, the Cowboys, they figured it out here on against the Giants. They did a good job against them. It was the Giants, and they still scored. They still scored 31 points. Yes, one was on the offense, but they punted twice. You forced a terrible offense to punt twice. So I don't know. Yes, it was better, but Carson Wentz, I don't even know if he's like the 3rd best quarterback in the division right now, to be honest with you. He's so bad and so lost right now. I just kept watching this game like, why don't the Eagles just hand it off every single time? Because the Cowboys will not stop them.
Yeah.
They could have gone on 12-play drive every single time and scored touchdowns.
Yeah,
it was better, but it was still not good.
Well, I guess the good news is, they did make a trade, and what's his name? Eli Anko. Anko? Is he the future at defensive tackle?
Evidently, when you give up, yes, I think he is, because that's what you think of when you give up a 2022 7th-round pick to get a guy who hasn't played this season.
Yeah, and you hear the way that they talk about it, like they're going to use this guy and they think he can come in there and it's a piece. And then, I mean, who knows? They say, sounds like they're not going to make any more trades, but as you mentioned, a 7th-round pick for this dude who hasn't played all year. He only has 20 games and 2 starts in his career, but apparently, he's worth giving a look at. That's how desperate they are in the middle of that line, where quite honestly, they may have the worst collection of defensive tackles in the league.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get a chance because, look, 79, what's his name? Justin Hamilton. He had like 3 good plays against Arizona and was like, ooh, put that guy in there. And all of a sudden he's had to play more, and you're like, yeah, okay, he's Justin. We don't need to see any more of that guy. Like, he is just a fill-in dude.
Before we get
so, James, if you have fantasy football, I'm not a fantasy dude. Make sure you have James Conner active and playing.
Yeah, like any Pittsburgh Steeler you have offensively, put them in your lineup this week.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a rough one. I don't know how they score, and I don't know how they keep within 3 touchdowns of Pittsburgh.
The one good thing for the Cowboys this week, there'll only be about 25,000 fans at the game, but I think 17,000 or so of them will be Steeler fans.
Yeah, it'll be like a home game for the Steel Curtain crew.
Todd Archer, thanks for the time, man. We appreciate you jumping on here with us for the first time on the podcast. And once Jacques' company steps up, we'll have you on regularly.
Hopefully, I'm here for you. I'm waiting, just waiting for the call. I'm like Garrett Gilbert or Cooper Rush, I guess, just waiting for the call from the Cowboys. I'm waiting for the call from you guys.
There you go. All right, Todd.
Bro.
Appreciate
See
it.
you guys. Yep.
All right, there he is. That's ESPN NFL Nation Cowboys reporter Todd Archer. All right, before we get into our new segment here, a reminder again of our sponsor from Edward Jones, their financial advisor, Lauren Laddick. And I know a lot of us can have these concerns about everything going on in the world today, but don't let that derail your long-term financial strategy. This is where Lauren comes in. She'll work with you to help you understand the impact of the events and how to be positioned for the long term. Edward Jones provides the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing, and she can connect with you in several ways, including virtually. I suck with money. I've mentioned this many times. I'm not a finance person. My brother's good at it, but guess who's better? Lauren Laddick with Edward Jones. From 401k rollovers to stocks and bonds, planning for retirement, that's her thing. Big supporter of Jam Session, so give her a call and she can help you. 972-563-1417, 972-563-1417, Edward Jones, member SIPC. But we used to do this on the radio show. Man, we've done a couple of those things today. We finally figured out how to operate everything from home. We've got all the gear that we need. Now, we used to do a segment called New Music Monday. But today, we're just going to call it New Music Today, because who knows when you're listening to this.
Right.
And I've got 3 songs from the same album that I'll play for you, but I wanted to start before we get into mine with the song that you had selected, because I listened to this, and when I was loading it up, I was like, damn, this is a really good song. Like a pretty song.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a guy who's probably more into lyrics, and that's why I started liking country music a little bit more the last few years. I don't like a lot of head banging, so I don't like rap. I don't like metal. I don't like too much rock. I'm much more of a pop R&B guy, with a little country mixed in. But here's what happened. Now, don't judge me, Matt. I've been riding this Peloton, and no, I'm not doing a commercial for Peloton, but I've been riding it a lot lately. And every instructor, they come on and there's a soundtrack attached to their ride for the day. And the song comes on the screen. If you like it, you can kind of bookmark it and go back later and find it. Well, this one came on. I was like, you know what? This is pretty good. I might need to go back and listen to it. I didn't even know the artist's name. I had never even heard of her, because what I tell y'all, I get introduced to music through ways like this, or I hear it in a store. Yeah. Shazam is like my best friend, because other than that, I'm already listening to music that I like.
Yeah, and it's funny because, and we'll play the song here in just a second, but the artist that you're talking about is Rachel Platten, who, for those, and I was just looking up some information about her, and I was like, oh, it's this girl.
Oh, who is she?
She sang that song, Fight Song. This is my fight song. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it was super popular, like a girl power type song that came out back in 2015. And that hit like top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was everywhere. And so this is her song, and this is a song called Soldiers.
At the end of the road, we're all soldiers on our own, trying to find our way back home.
Beautiful voice, man.
And at the end of the day, nothing matters anyway, just the love that we have made. So let's let go of our mistakes. We've all got hearts that easily break. No matter how the light may fade, we'll carry on. It's how we're raised.
So, I mean, you kind of get the idea there. I mean, it's a really pretty song. I just, like, I was wondering when I was listening to this and putting it in, I was like, it must be like a new single because I don't think it's on any of her previous albums. But I was like, I mean, at what point of the Peloton ride are you listening to this?
It's probably, I can't remember which one I did it because I've been doing a lot of different rides, short ones, long ones. All I know is they probably threw that one on at the end when you were tired, like, soldier on, it's almost over.
Okay.
Come on, fight through it, get it done.
But yeah, I thought, I mean, that's a really good song. I listened to the whole thing. I mean, I didn't put the whole thing in there, obviously, but, you know, I thought that was a fantastic song, a great choice by you.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I guess I should have looked up. It's, I don't know what it's off of. From the album Soldiers that has been, I guess it's an upcoming album. That's her first single off the upcoming album called Soldiers by Rachel Platten. So that's kind of cool. All right, so I've talked about this band before, and when we were doing the radio show, we even played a single from their album, and it's one of my favorite all-time bands ever, The Killers. And they released an album a few months ago called Imploding the Mirage. And I am obsessed with this album. I listen to it all the time. It's probably one of my top 5 favorite all-time albums. Like, I love this album. It's to me...
Well, how's that new music for you?
Well, it's just because I wanted to share it with everybody.
Oh, okay.
And because I've been listening to it so many times in the last few months that I don't know. It's like when you have a great craft beer and I want everybody else to try it and enjoy it. I wanted everybody else to hear these songs and hope that they enjoy them. Now, if you're not a Killers fan, you're probably not going to enjoy this, but this album, and this is rare for me, dude, because most times, even bands that I like a lot, when they release new albums, still to this day, a lot of times I'm like, well, I like 7 out of the 10 songs. Or I really like 2 of them, 4 of them I'm cool with, and the other 4 I'm like, man, I just kind of skip them. I like every single song on this album. Every single one of them. I can listen to this album front and back over and over and love it.
Damn.
And they've put out multiple albums, but this to me is their best work that they've done. I mean, you were talking about such a range musically. And, you know, Caution, which I've played before. I'm not going to play that one since we've done it before. But that I was like, is Caution my all-time favorite Killers song now? And I don't think it is, but I think this song called My Own Soul's Warning might be my all-time favorite Killers song. Yeah, get that synthesizer going. I love it.
Eternity's eyes, like a vision reaching down to you, would you turn away?
I mean, I love this song.
What if it knew you by your name? What kind of words?
And it's one of those songs, I've probably listened to this song 400 times since it's come out.
I tried going against my own soul's warning, and in the end, something just
getting on my nerves.
Yeah, I mean, you know me. I love synthesizer, but like the whole lyric about I tried going against my own soul's warning, you know, and this whole idea that, you know, you got to listen to what's inside you, I guess. And I don't know, but I absolutely love that song. I love the music of that song. And I'm not kidding you. I couldn't even, 400 is probably a low estimate. I mean, I've done hour and a half workouts.
Or is it just during the workout, you just hear it over and over and over again?
Yeah, there's some of that. I mean, you know, I did that with Blinding Lights once where I went over and over and over for an hour and a half of nothing but Blinding Lights. And I've done it with that song too. And I don't know why. It just makes me happy, makes me feel good. And when I'm working out with those endorphins, it's like I get even more high. But this next song is another one from Imploding the Mirage by The Killers. And this is another great one called Dying Breed.
Comes back again. We'll know what we're made of.
Yeah, so it starts out like that, and then it cuts in here. Yeah, that's just one of those, I don't know what it is, the music of these songs. I mean, this is just, like, I love these songs. I think this is just, this is like top 5 album of all time, and these are great songs. That one doesn't do it for you.
I was still listening to it because I think you're a lot like me, man. Where now I'm much more like this as I've gotten older. You know, it's about the lyrics, man. You know, the beat is cool, but I really get down off the lyrics, and so I was actually listening to those lyrics.
Oh, nice. All right.
See, I'm not so shallow, dog. I could go deep.
And then see. I like this next cut that I chose. And again, this is the Killers album, Imploding the Mirage. It's extremely diverse. Now, yes, synthesizer is one of their things and bass and all that. But this next song to me sounds like something that would have been popular in the mid 1980s. And this one is called Fire and Bone.
I felt cast out. I felt 86. I felt darkness. But I felt fire and bone. I felt
But yeah, you get kind of that 80s vibe from that one.
No joke. That's a serious 80s vibe right there.
Dude, and that bass line, where they're just plugging the bass with you. And yeah, and all three of those songs, they have similarities, obviously, but they're also quite different. And I don't know what it is. Like every time I drive around, if the weather's really good, that's probably the album that I've been rocking out lately. And it just, I love those songs, those lyrics. The Caution song that we've played before has one of the great lines of all time that, talks about, what a waste of life it would have been what is it? What a waste of your life to live what a waste to live your whole life on a what might have been. Like that type of thing, which is stuff that I think, especially with what we're doing now, is really identifiable where you're like, you know what? Let's pursue this shit. Let's just do it. Let's chase it.
Let's go live the dream, the American dream.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I did have some new stuff, and maybe next week I'll throw out some of the ones that I've heard more recently. But I've been listening to the crap out of that album, and I wanted to see your thoughts.
The 80s sound at the end wasn't too bad. The synthesizers got on my nerves a little bit, but the lyrics in general, I heard them. I listened to them.
All right.
I felt them.
Well, there you go. So that is new music today. So hopefully you guys, if you haven't heard those songs before, maybe give you something to go down the rabbit hole on. But thanks for listening to the Jam Session Podcast. Find us on Instagram at Jam Session Cast. Don't forget, we're also available on our YouTube channel. So subscribe today by searching Jam Session Podcast. And coming up on Friday, we will be out at Oak Highlands Brewing out there in the Dallas area off of Miller Road and 635. And we will be doing, if you can't make it to the actual brewery, we will be doing a live YouTube show, which is why you want to make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. And also, of course, find us on Twitter at McMattRadio, at JJT_journalist. Our director of creative content is Brian Hart. Thanks to Purple Elephant Music. They supply the music you hear at the end and beginning of each episode. He is the radio and TV star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor. And I'm just a guy, Matt McLaren. Please remember, subscribe, rate, review, and tell a friend that you've been listening to this great new podcast called Jam Session, and you guys help us bring in some more Jam Session fans. We'll catch you next time on the Jam Session Podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts.